WTJX on the go with the WTJX app, available for download from the App Store and Google Play.
WTJX 93.1, Charlotte, Amalia, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands.
The views and opinions expressed on Analyze This are entirely those of the on-air participants and do not reflect those of the station's board, management, staff, or underwriters.
And we're back here to Analyze This. Some programming notes for tonight on Channel 12, the flagship. We got the PBS News Hour at 7 p.m. Dreamland at 8 p.m. Explore the history of West 9th Street and the black community in Little Rock. That's from 8 to 9 p.m. Then at 9 p.m., Finding Your Roots. Explore the inspiring ancestry of novelist Amy Tan and poet Rita Dove. Okay, that's from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Then from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m., Lucy Worsley investigates. Discover how the 1605 gunpowder plot could have completely changed the course of British history. And then at 11 p.m., Frontline, explore Donald Trump's return to the presidency. Right? So we got the News Hour at 7, Dreamland at 8, Finding Your Roots at 9, Lucy Worsley investigates at 10, and Frontline at 11. So we've been joined here in the studio by a couple of big shots in the Bryan administration. We got Energy Office Director Kyle Fleming of the Power Hour joining me. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
Find a microphone there for him, please. Morning again.
Good morning. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Glad to see you. And, of course, Kevin Williams, Chief of Staff.
That is correct. Good morning, Neville. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Chief of Staff for the Governor's Office, Albert Bryan. Year 7 of 8 furlong.
And we're in the lead by far.
Well, when you're running against yourself, you're supposed to be in the lead. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's because all the competition drop out.
The election done.
All the competition drop
The
out.
election done, man. The election done in 2022.
But Neville,
It's
the
about
job
serving.
ain't done.
We got to
We
provide.
go run the full race.
You got to provide.
Exactly.
So that's what it's all about. So, why are you doing in my studio talking energy in January? What prompted this? Because when I got this note that I come into talk energy, I got big news for the people in my way.
No, it ain't that we got big news, Neville, but energy is really the center of everything really happening in the Virgin Islands for the most part. And we really wanted to come to the public really to talk about energy from the perspective of inflation and what is it doing to the people and what we have on the horizon for them. As you know, the governor will be giving his 7th address, or State of the Territory address, next week, Monday at 7 p.m. So there's some stuff in there that you guys got to tune in for. But we just really wanted to come to the public and share some of this vital information on what does it mean. We spent a better half of 2024 in the energy morass. And we're starting to really come out of it in a real strong way. And we just wanted to make sure that the public is informed. We often get criticized for not informing the public enough. Sometimes you can't just say once, and this is our attempt to bring some of that information to light to the general public.
Director?
No, completely aligned with C.S. Williams. I think there's, I'm here typically once a month and we talk both about programs, but then just energy as a whole. But I think really what we wanted to dial into is really the cause and effect of some of the policies, not just from the Energy Office, really from the Brian Roach administration as a whole, because it really, it's been a war fought on many fronts, I think is probably the best way to put it, which is necessary because our challenges from an energy standpoint have been, it's been a broad range of issues to overcome. And I think that there's, the community understands the spectrum of activities that are being put in place, the amount of solutions and problem solving across multiple sectors that are channeling their efforts towards ensuring that we are reducing the energy burden, the cost and the inconvenience of energy in the territory. I think it's important that the community understands just how comprehensive of an effort it is and the multiple areas in which we're seeking to bring that relief.
How much energy costs to the ratepayers right now in the Virgin Islands? If you're done with WAPA, what's the cost to the ratepayer right now?
The retail rate right now is over 250 kilowatts is 42.5 cents. Essentially, let's call it 43 cents per kilowatt hour for residential. Just over 45, reaching at 46 cents a kilowatt hour for commercial as of today.
And that's what we're selling it. That's what we're selling it at. The difference of what is being produced at is really in the range of 51 to 55 cents a kilowatt, or at least historically. And some of the recent accomplishments of the water and power utility, of course, is bridging that gap to the concern of the general public. When will they see rates going down?
Yeah, but let me stop you right there. If in fact we are selling at a rate that is lower than what it's costing the authority to generate power, the people still losing because the people own the water and power authority?
Of course.
That's something that I don't believe that administrations have articulated to the public enough, that the water and power authority belongs to the people of the Virgin Islands. And we have a vested interest in seeing that the authority produces at a rate that is commensurate with what it's collecting revenue for.
So, you know, Neville, I think the governor was on here about a year ago. And you remember when we had this whole battle about the water and power authority and it being authority, what is the governor's role? The senator says, no, they're a fully autonomous entity, and went through that whole court battle. The court ruled that, yes, WAPA is a autonomous entity. And then to your point, yeah, this is an instrument of the government of the Virgin Islands that belongs to the people of the Virgin Islands. And when it's in distress, well, who's going to come to assist it? And I think that is essentially lost sometimes in our political wrangling as to what does all of this mean to the people of the Virgin Islands. The governor and this administration has subsidized the water and power utility over $100 million. We know $100 million out of ARPA to keep the rates the same. And I think factually, Neville, what is important is that the rates under this administration has never increased. They have been relatively stable. And we know the price of oil as a commodity has not been stable. And why? And that is only because the governor has made every attempt to protect businesses, to protect residents in terms of the impact of the fluctuating cost of energy can have on residents in their pockets, as well as business owners who are trying to keep their doors open, sell service. And so that strategy and the vision that the governor had, what is playing out before your eyes, is working. I think undeniably, and you know, I was talking this morning, and a year and a half ago, when the governor came out and says we're going to put solar on the grid with the water and power utility, he stood out as a leader and a visionary on that mission, and we're seeing today that it's come to fruition. And not only that, but the momentum and the winds are pushing WAPA to more reliable power generation, eventually lower costs, and eventually a better financial footing for the water and power authority that belongs to the people of the Virgin Islands. So we have done I think a yeoman's job of bringing it from the brink of collapse to protecting the core infrastructure that belongs to the people of the Virgin Islands.
We're going to come back to the subsidy talk there a little bit. We got Carla on the line. Good morning, Carla. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. James. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Good morning. You got a question or comment from Mr. Williams and Mr.
Yeah,
Fleming?
as I get up here, and it's 0 degrees with the wind chill here in New York, and I'm listening to the individuals, I don't know who he is, talk about WAPA and the subsidies. One of the things I want to ask, because when Kyle Fleming was on your show, and I asked him about in August of 23, when the $4 million subsidy ended June of 23, tell me what is the fuel that the PSC gave WAPA Aliak raised on the water production? And you know what his answer to me was? 1.5 megas. That's not a fuel. I then asked Andy Smith, who was the former CEO, Mr. Attorney Sproul at the PSC, and they was talking about consumer price index. That's how you measure inflation. Still not a fuel. Now elected to the 36th legislative body, Mr. Vele was on a program, and I asked him, he said, that's double dipping. Because if it's run with electricity from the intake pumps taking the water from the bed to the filtration process, and remember, I was an operator for 13 years, so it's not like I'm just reading this. This is what I did, so I know this to be a fact. So if you're telling me now that you're frauding the people, basically that's what it is. It's fraud when you're double dipping, charging a LEAC, which stands for Levelized Energy Adjustment Clause, which is a fuel tax, when there's no specific fuel to produce the water, independent of the fact that you have to produce electricity force with the LEAC buying diesel and LPG in order to make the water, and then that's still
Mr. Fleming is here in the studio, no, so I could let Mr. Fleming respond to that.
Let Mr. Fleming respond.
Yeah, Mr. Fleming, the correlation between what it takes the Water and Power Authority to generate power to provide water for the people, based on what the caller is saying.
Well, just to be clear, there's the utility WAPA does not produce its own water. They have a contract with a third-party supplier. They provide electricity to that provider, and never provide a cost.
WAPA provides electricity to that supplier.
Right. It's considered station service. So there's 2 megawatts of on average, about 2 megawatts of electrical supply that goes to support the third party who provides water for the entire Virgin Islands. So the rate structure would be what WAPA charges itself, or the cost of fuel associated with the operation, whether it be the station service to maintain grid stability, station service to operate the facility. It's part of the inherent cost of the operation. So there's never a rate structure set aside specific to that vendor. It's part of the operational cost associated with doing business as a water utility.
Okay.
Mr. Fleming, so we have a public-private partnership with Seven Seas, right, to produce the potable water. Now, the raw material that Seven Seas is using, it comes from the bay, right? So from the shoreline to 3 miles out belongs to the people of the Virgin Islands, right? Why aren't we charging them? Why don't we have a meter on that Ingersoll intake pump that's taking water out of the bay? That's a natural resource that belongs to the people of the Virgin Islands. Why aren't we charging them for that raw material that they then convert to, I guess, fresh water, as we call it, potable water for human consumption? Why aren't we charging them for that?
The service that we're compensating them is for the conversion of that water, the salt water, into potable water that the community can utilize.
I want to ask you, I'm going to end on this, Mr. Fleming, because you probably that was before you took over at Department of Energy. Why did we get rid of the IDEs, which belonged to the people of the Virgin, and which we was on a payment plan, which made the best water, bar none, because it was done through thermal evaporation and not reverse osmosis, which gave us a better quality of water. When we did that, what happened? We had to change the water chemistry, which we know before we did that the cast iron pipes that was in the ground was past the manufacturer rated lifespan, that we was already having problems with the 8-inch main line from corrosion. And now we changed the water chemistry and put more salinity instead of fresh water going up the road. That's why you had the problem in St. Croix. So back again, How was that a benefit to the people of the Virgin Islands when we're sharing the revenues with Seven Seas, when we had all of that revenue coming in, going directly to WAPA, when we had the IDEs belonging to the people of the Virgin Islands? Didn't make no sense fiscally, even where you wanted to get the quality of water. When you're talking about water,
let you answer the question though, because you asked a question and then you add a comment with it, Mr. Fleming.
Well, so the initial point that yes, the decision to transition from the IDE to the reverse osmosis 7Cs certainly predates me, so it was not part of the decision matrix that led to that point. But ultimately, we can't assume that just because we had a internal solution before that was the most efficient and most effective way for us to produce, especially given the fact of how tightly tied that water process was to our thermal generation, a legacy thermal generation that we have constantly been and are currently actively looking to prudently replace through some recently announced FEMA projects. So being able to tie our water production directly to legacy thermal generation that had its own host of challenges to just supply electricity, and then having to lean on that as well from the ID standpoint, like I think there is very clear. It's not a necessarily a one-to-one or as simple as just because it was in place before, it was ultimately going to be the ultimate solution. But again, I was not there for the entire analysis of how that was done, but assuming that there was clearly a list of challenges that would have made the incumbent approach not desirable.
Well, let me just say this. When I worked there, we were a steam plant.
Mr. Grant.
I just want to make that
statement. But you're repeating it. No, but excuse me, man. Don't disrespect me on my show, man. I'm talking to you, and you're disrespecting me, and I don't like it. You keep saying the same thing over and over again. You ask a question with respect to cost to the people because you heard a senator say about double dipping, right? The real issue is how does this benefit the people of the Virgin Islands, and that's the issue. I don't know. I don't know if you lost or you got cut off because I didn't cut you off. But all I'm saying is we can't be harping over the same thing over and over again and then talking about you once worked at WAPA. We know that. You've been telling us that for years. The real issue is what are we dealing with today, which I want to ask you a question, Mr. Williams. You're talking about subsidizing. This is a big thing that senators were talking about from 2008. Neighboring islands in the Caribbean been doing it for years, and this government, for some reason, been having a problem doing it prior to this administration. Why is it now such a big thing?
Well, I think, Neville, it's a big thing because the governor initially in 2019 sought to assist WAPA with buying these additional Wärtsilä generators. Mm-hmm. And the plan was that these generators would have come online around 2022 and we would have started to see some benefits. There was a number of delays. And the governor saw back when we had that first recession what the energy crisis did to the economy of the Virgin Islands. And he wanted to make sure that we could ride through the waves of high oil prices while we were waiting on these new units to come online. So it was a tactic to safeguard the economy while we start to fix our generation.
We'll take a break on that note. We're talking with Kevin Williams, the Governor's Chief of Staff, and Mr. Kyle Fleming, Energy Office Director. We'll take a break and be back right after this.
WTJX, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands, is underwritten in part by Bank of St. Croix, offering Elevate Checking, a mobile banking app, and direct deposit. Online at bankofstcroix.com. Bank of St. Croix is proud to support public media in the Virgin Islands.
this year we are celebrating 10 amazing seasons. From the waters of New England to the mountains of Utah, all the way up the West Coast, the country's most exciting chefs and food artisans join us to fish, forage, dive, and dig for the best local ingredients and help us create some unforgettable feasts. So please grab a plate and join us. You don't want to miss it.
Tune in Friday.
It's harmless to humans, but people can unknowingly spread the disease if they have contact with pigs or if they carry pork when they travel. If the virus reaches the United States, it will kill millions of pigs that supply our food. This could raise food prices, cause shortages, and eliminate jobs. Help stop the spread. Don't pat pork when you travel, and don't mail or ship pork. Learn more at usda.gov.
Ready to put the pedal to the metal? Go full speed ahead with MotorWeek. Whether you want a cleaner commuter, a family-friendly hauler, or to keep your drive running longer,
this is actually a great trick for extending the life of your engine.
Our experts have you covered. Hit the road, track, and trail with us every week. I'm John Davis. Never miss a mile of MotorWeek.
Tune in Saturdays at 3 p.m. on WTJX TV Channel 12.
And we're back here to analyze this, talking with the governor's chief of staff, Mr. Kevin Williams, from out of the west, and Kyle Fleming from out of the east, the Energy Office Director, joining us this morning. Good morning once again, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Gentlemen, we have the Power Hour here on this show, the first Friday every month. We try to maintain that. And we had a conversation with Johnny Rumson sometime last year. And we have been talking about real alternative forms of energy as opposed to Wärtsilä and St. Thomas, Aggreko and St. Croix. And we're talking about investment. Now, I know solar has been the one area where, we got a Petronella facility up there by Windsor. I think it used to be a Windsor farm, or that area up there by Howard Wild Boy Scout Camp.
Mm-hmm.
But when Johnny Wilson was on, Director Fleming, we talked about the Water and Power Authority recognizing that there were some other areas that we could have looked at. And, we still haven't explored those areas in earnest. Why do you think that's the case, aside from our historically being immune to change?
To be honest, I think that the real clear strategy here is we're picking the lowest hanging fruit first. We have a number of challenges that we have to address. We have to look at the most readily available, most commercially available, and viable solutions, and that's where the immense focus has been. Stability, to be able to provide resilient and affordable power. It's really pulling at the strings that have been dangling there for a while, and really starting to make sure that those projects that have been discussed, that are available to us to implement and see tangible change in real time, you have to exhaust those means prior to the exploratory phase of then being, okay, how do we squeeze out the additional last 2% of efficiency, right? Any engineering would tell you, look, the first 98% efficiency, that's the easy part. It's that final 2% of really extracting the max is where the challenge really lies. And I think at this point, we're still in that 98% zone where we're trying to maximize the opportunities within arm's reach. And as we get more solidified, as all our foundational institutional knowledge that comes from that, then sets the stage for sustainably exploring other options. But at this point, the most viable and impactful options are the ones that are being heavily not just pursued, but executed and implemented. As we start to exhaust the full potential of the efficient generation and solar and storage, optimization across the territory, we're going to have an open canvas for then the next iteration or the next viable technology, and also giving those technologies time to develop, because we don't necessarily need to be the guinea pig of the first time or demonstrating the viability here. We need to be leveraging the most commercially viable and established resources. And again, we're still in that phase. So I think it's more so a throttling, right? I know that there's the new and being the first. There's all those things that we love to be a part of, but also ultimately, a lot of our low hanging fruit, we need to make sure we're picking them, and that's exactly what we're doing right now.
So Neville, let me just say this, right?
No, I want to get the public a little bit background. You just reached, okay? You weren't always.
I always been there.
you weren't always a part of the Bryan Roach administration at the levels that you are now.
Well, of course,
right?
of course.
You were at the third branch of government, and you came over what, year 5, year 6?
Yeah, in the second term of the
second term, year 5, right?
Yeah.
Year 5, right? And just for full disclosure, I was a part of a meeting with you in year 1 of the Bryan Roach administration. We met with the governor around Labor Day of 2019 when we were the governor was looking at things that he wanted to do and solidifying his foundation early on in his administration. So I just want the public to know that, right? Because at the time I was out the legislature, and I just want for a better Virgin Islands. We've been fortunate, Mr. Williams, Mr. Fleming, and the audience, that from a financial perspective, COVID was beneficial to the Virgin Islands. I think we can all agree on that, right? In terms of the amount of revenues, the federal resources that we got as a result of that. Not that we didn't deserve it. I didn't say that. You know what I'm saying? Well, the point that I'm making is that per capita, because we're a small jurisdiction, the amount of revenue that we were eligible for, I think that's the right terminology, right? Actually worked in our favor, coupled with the fact that neighboring islands were on lockdown. So our tourism industry actually benefited from that as well.
Never.
Right?
I need to just add one thing there, because it's not just the money.
No, I didn't say it was. No,
right.
I didn't say it was.
No, you said we benefit from the resources.
We did.
I think
that's a factual statement.
When you benefit from strong, bold, courageous leadership, because
I'm not
because our ability to come out of COVID doing well was based on the courage of the governor to decide to open up when everybody else was scared and shut down. If you remember all those battles about open up, shut down, that's what allowed us to gain the head start on the rest of the Caribbean in terms of our tourist product, and to be able to benefit financially and leverage all the COVID dollars that we had.
But that's a factual statement.
Yeah.
I'm not in the business.
A different leader might have did a different thing with a different outcome.
Well, like I said, I realize that you're the governor's chief of staff and you're supposed to make the statements that you're making. The reality is he made those decisions and they were beneficial to the people of the Virgin Islands. It's just factual statements.
Correct.
The point that I'm making to you, Mr. Williams, is that we had a commitment to do all of this infrastructure upgrade with the Wartsillas. We got this lease agreement with the Agreco here on St. Croix. But the reality is we have known for decades that diesel fuel and all the different commodities that we have used in the past, it is not in our long-term best interest to just depend on those. We got to make a long-term commitment in the other areas and the alternative fuel. So at some point, when are we going to genuinely commit to that? Because my good friend Kyle Fleming said, we're dealing with the lowest hanging fruit. And he don't want us to be guinea pigs, which I'm glad you said, because basically what you're saying is you don't want us to be a pilot jurisdiction. That's what you just said, right?
Not at the utility scale for providing, not at the dispatchable utility scale where we have to know day in, day out, 365, second by second, reliable and affordable services.
In other words, in lay people language, you would want us to know what we getting ourselves into.
We have to.
Before we make that commitment.
We have to.
Right? Good. So I agree with that. The question is that going to happen between now and January 2027?
Well, I'm not sure if I follow you, Neville, because I'm of the mindset, the dog in the bone in this dog mouth is the one we bite in. To go look over in the river for the other bone and not bite. Hold on. Let me make my analogy.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I'm going to come back to that. I don't want the public to think that I'm asking you to do something that we're not capable of doing. I just asked a question. Mr. Fleming mentioned the lowest hanging fruit, which is solar
and efficient generation.
Right? But you promoted battery. right?
So I said solar and battery,
Yeah, solar and battery.
synonymous, and just battery standalone also, which we are doing as well. So it's not to say, basically what we're doing is the low-hanging fruit, which includes efficient generation. So we're efficiently leveraging the lowest cost fuel in propane, liquid propane, as we can through efficient generation. We have alternative generation sources through solar, which is we all know, we don't have to go through those basics. We all know is a resource that is abundantly available in the Virgin Islands.
No.
And we have a battery that helps stabilize us in utilizing both at the renewables as well as stabilizing our efficient generation as well.
And I just want for us to be candid with the ratepayers and the people of the Virgin Islands, which is my point, Mr. Williams. If it means that the likelihood of us going beyond where we are now as it relates to alternative energy is at 10%, 40%, 70%, 90% between now and the end of the Bryan Roach administration, it would be in our best interest to be candid with the people and tell the people we're not there yet, or we don't have that ability to speak 24 months into the future. That's the point that I'm making. That's the question I'm asking.
So I think the train has left the yard already in terms of our ability to get there. We know where we're going, and we know we almost could predict the timeline where we're going to get to our destination. We have 2 solar sites on St. Croix generating almost the peak capacity in terms of renewable energy in the district of St. Croix. We have 2 additional sites that are going to be coming online 2025 for St. Thomas, St. John district. The one issue that Neville and Kyle that I wanted to mention, solar on a utility scale of this level is not something that is commonplace. So we are a bit leading edge. A lot of places that have a lot of solar, it doesn't encompass their almost entire grid. So this is something the water and power utility through their interconnection studies and stuff are looking at. How much solar can the grid actually sustain? Because when we have hurricanes, we still have to be able to go to some level of either these biofuel generators such as diesel or propane, depending if a storm is hitting and immediately coming on a storm. So there's a lot of factors that goes into what the profile makeup for the water and utility power is. What we are doing is making sure that these, let's call it traditional generators, can burn multiple fuel sources depending on what's happening on the market and are even more efficient than what we had before. So same generator, same level, but utilizing less fuel to burn the same amount of energy. And at the same time, we are having these renewables. So right now, the cost for the generator to produce fuel, not the overall cost for water power utility, is about 21 cents. These solar plants that we have are generating, or WAPA is buying energy from them at 11 cents a kilowatt. And so that's tremendous in terms of where we are going. And I think that's what I'm saying. We know where we're going. We know when we're going to get there. And yes, we're going to reduce
so what's the main
the cost of electricity before the end of the Bryan Roach administration.
Okay, I could live with that, right? What's the main challenge now? Getting more infrastructure in place?
Main challenge to what?
Main challenge to the people of the Virgin Islands as it relates to the ratepayers.
WAPA's financial predicament. The legacy debt.
We spoke about that earlier.
Yeah,
right? We broke down.
That's the biggest challenge, I think.
We broke down because I'm gonna be honest with you, right? You're basically what you said with the math, right? Is that it's costing WAPA anywhere from 25 to 30% more than they're collecting from us, the ratepayers, right?
Yes.
To function, right? That's what he said.
Yes, about 25%.
Right, 55 cent to the
43,
and collecting 42,
Yep.
right? So when you divide the difference into the 42, because the denominator is 42, right? Whether it be 12, 13 cents, what have you, right? That's significant. Is that being subsidized by the government as we speak right now?
No. Since the end of the state of emergency, we have stopped. And remember, we were subsidizing before, and we stopped the $100 million subsidy. Then through the state of emergency, we had to additionally subsidize them to get these wholesalers online and get them to this point. So we're no longer subsidizing WAPA, but they're not out of.
So, Mr. Board Member, WAPA is operating at a cash deficit based on what it's producing.
Yeah, yes. In its current state, Yes, but that's nothing, that's not new. That's been the long-standing situation. That is why it's so important for us to reducing our operational cost profile closes that deficit or reduces that deficit to a point that's actually manageable, because it's not manageable if you're constantly operating at a cost deficit. That's why you have to pull in subsidies, you have to pull in alternative methods. The point is to be able to run the operation, the expenditures and your revenues bare minimum balance, not be inflated in the expenditures division.
You and I were traveling the same day, and you told me the governor gonna make an announcement tomorrow. From that day when we were traveling, and that was the $600 million redo, right? Where are we with respect to that?
So those funds have been obligated. I think there are two parts. There are the generators on St. Thomas, some new generators that WAPA is going to get, and then the plant rebuild on St. Croix. The rebuild plan is going to be worked through the Super PMO office as a collaboration between WAPA and ODR. And then WAPA is going to be handling the generation of the new generations on St. Thomas. So those monies have now been obligated. We can actually really fully start planning, looking to put the bids together and get moving on that. WAPA has to make some decision in terms of, again, how
that $600 million was a territory-wide commitment or a St. Croix commitment?
St. Croix commitment.
St. Croix commitment. Okay, good.
Really good news.
Yeah. No. So we are aware in the process as it relates to we could make the public announcement that new infrastructure is going to be in place.
Yes, we can.
We can say that right now.
Yes, it's just a matter of WAPA is going to, of course, has the necessary input in terms of what does that look like? What size generators, the layout, how much batteries, that whole profile, and whether in fact there is an opportunity to have sort of redundant power generation. Can we produce some power on the South Shore? I mean, remember, right? There's the advent of LNG now that we getting through on the South Shore side. Right now, one of the things people forgot, Neville, is we gotta move propane. We gotta move propane over to the Richmond site. Imagine if we didn't have that additional transportation cost, and it was just using it right there from the refinery, pipe it over right into WAPA. So WAPA has some decisions to make, but we got the money.
But that's what
we got the money.
You coming back to my point earlier. You were trying to spin me around when I tell you from a resources standpoint, we are in a better position than we've been for a long time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's the point that I was making. I wasn't knocking the administration. I'm just talking about
no.
some factual
and
realities that we're dealing with.
And Neville,
because I want to say this though. I have always been a pro WAPA proponent, whether it be pro WAPA voice, because I don't want to be redundant there, right? The even if it was to my political detriment at the time, simply because WAPA belonged to we. I've always said that, right? I didn't like the fact that the rates were high. I pay rates too, and I don't like that. But we gotta want to fix it and perfect it, and we could do that locally.
And Neville,
because we got the intellectual capacity, and I will never believe that we don't have it within us and in us to do that.
And this is really, really where courageous leadership. I keep repeating this, and I want the public to hear me repeat it. Like when the governor first stand out and talked about WAPA, everybody cussed him, and everybody told him, Governor, stay away from that topic. Stay away from that topic.
You hear the music. We're going to a break. We'll pick it up right there because there's something that happened early in late in 2019 that the governor had to address. We'll be back right after this.
Virgin Islands Energy Office is committed to delivering relief now to Virgin Islanders who want help ensuring their energy security. As the territory's sustainable energy policy lead, the office is working to put in place the infrastructure needed to support the adoption of electric vehicles, residential battery energy storage solutions, and the green workforce needed to service these technologies. Visit their website at energy.vi.gov about how you can access energy-efficient appliances and battery energy storage rebate programs.
You know a good story when you hear it. Makes you feel, laugh, think. Sometimes you get a little teary. I'm Scott Simon, host of Weekend Edition Saturday, and each week we bring you stories from around the country and around the world. Stories that help you learn, make you smile, catch you by surprise. Please join us every Saturday for the news you need and the stories you won't forget.
Weekend Edition, Saturdays at 9 a.m. on WTJX FM 93.1, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands.
The U.S. Virgin Islands is filled with a variety of diverse events all year long. And the WTJX FM 93.1 community calendar showcases upcoming events hosted by the Government of the Virgin Islands, local nonprofits, community organizations, and businesses. All events submitted to the community calendar must be sent at least 2 weeks in advance. Please send your information to news at WTJX.org.
Music can be an incredibly personal experience. A song can inspire you, it can comfort you, it can make you feel understood, it can even take you back to a specific moment in your life. And it all begins with the artist. Join me, Raina Duras, as I get personal through in-depth interviews with your favorite musicians and find out where those songs come from on World Cafe.
Weekdays at 10 p.m. on WTJX FM 93.1.
And we're back here to analyze this, having a discussion with the governor's chief of staff, Mr. Kevin Williams, out of the West, and Energy Office Director Kyle Fleming out at East End. Good morning, gentlemen. Glad to have you analyze this.
Good to be here, man.
Yeah, the governor gives his 7th State of the Territory address on Monday.
That's correct.
Right? You're gonna be over there like you were walking King Street for the parade. Because I saw you on TV before I went down west, and I see you walking the road with the governor.
Listen, and the people wanted to talk to the governor. I was just so amazed at how often the governor come, I want to talk to you, I want to share the concern. And he made himself available to every single person, whether they had a smile on their face or they didn't, to hear their concerns.
Well, they don't really see the governor. No, I got you protected with security and all that stuff. So when they see on the parade road,
no man, I've seen a little clips with the governor out by himself. I don't promote it and I don't support it, but sometimes get out there by himself.
They got excited when they saw the Boston. The 2019 reference I wanted to talk to you about was Vital. Remember, the governor had to call a session with the legislature session in December 2019 because Vital was threatening us. And, at that time, one of the many threats that we got from Vital, the legislature. He had a Saturday morning meeting with the legislature, and then they went into session. And the governor actually thanked them. I got a story here for that's the case. Vital is no longer in the mix, or they're providing technical support?
They're currently still providing. We do have a contract for them to provide liquefied propane gas to both Richmond and Harley facilities at the moment. We have been. I think one of the early initiatives under the new executive director was Carl Nett was to identify alternative options, go to market to ensure that we are getting the most competitive pricing moving forward. Now that the ownership of the infrastructure is moving, but we are still currently providing or being supplied by Vital for the fuel. But now that we own infrastructure and have the options in who we can pursue for fueling services, that's currently underway. I can get a timeline to it. I don't have a timeline for that.
Listen, let me just make it clear.
And the government good with that?
Yes. I mean, and let me make this clear. The Watsilla project that you saw just cut the ribbon on last week, that couldn't happen until the Vital situation was cleared up. So we had to get that ownership. That was a huge lift. That was not an easy lift. We had to Adrian Todman, the governor honored Adrian Todman at the ribbon cutting because she, at the highest level of the federal government, was instrumental in making sure that happened for us to take what was simply the chokehold on WAPA. If WAPA don't pay this month, they lock off the propane supply. You know, that was the in 2020-22, that's what happened. You remember that? And so that was a huge lift to now make some of these other things, such as the watch cellular efficient generators, come online.
And by the way, I want the public to know, again, don't blame Kevin Williams because that predated his going up there to take that big jab up that particular point. Okay? Even though he talking, he coming with this, he does a lot of vision talk and that kind of thing, which he's supposed to do. That's the gig, right? But don't blame me. He just reached.
We need more visionaries.
Let me segue because a perfect segue. You mentioned federal government. We got new administration in effect as of yesterday.
That is correct.
What are we hearing? I know the governor went to D.C. Late last year to talk with the incoming folks who the incoming shot callers. What's the deal with that generically?
Generically, there are some good things for the Virgin Islands. The fact that the Republicans are in control of the Congress and the presidency, and then of course there's some bad things, and that's where we have been able to leverage or diversify our economic plans in terms of the governor has stepped out and has supported the restart of the refinery. We think that's going to bode well for us. Late last night, I think President Trump declared a state of energy emergency for the United States of America. And Neville, when the governor in April of last year declared a state of emergency, he didn't declare a state of emergency for WAPA, you know. He declared a state of energy emergency. So now the federal government has done that same thing. I think that really the report card shows well in terms of we're not out of our emergency despite what the Senate says, but it was the right and prudent thing to do. But that alone now puts us in a little bit of a quandary because our energy or renewable energies is something that the Republicans are not necessarily in full support of. And so we have a challenge there. The funding that we got to be able to spend that really, really quickly and move on those projects. But at the same time, we got to be able to move on the refinery to bring some of that to bear, especially on the South Shore trade zone. Another visionary endeavor the governor has to diversify the economy, especially here on St. Croix.
A visionary endeavor sponsored by Senator Novell Francis with meetings that go back as far as 2016 with Neville James and the folks up in Riviera Beach.
Yeah, Neville, you know I know the whole story.
Yeah. And I ain't gonna let you just make it seem is the boss. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people put in some work there. You know what I'm saying? When he was recalibrating at that particular time. Let me ask this question based on what you're hearing. The incoming administration, that being Trump, Vance, they are pro-refinery based on what you're hearing?
They are pro-American produced fossil fuels of every caliber and chemistry.
As it relates to the Virgin Islands, with the infrastructure that we have here on St. Croix, Donga Estate, Hope, Blessing, that hold on. Paul, the incoming administration is pro-refinery? Based on, if you were to put two and two together like we just said locally, refinery restart.
I cannot imagine any world, any scenario in which they're not supportive of that. That refinery is at one point was the 8th largest in the world. It has an immense amount of refining capacity. Its availability on U.S. soil only furthers the ambitions of increasing the volume of American-made fossil fuels. I mean, they are synonymous with each other, even though they have the ability to process even other feedstocks from other locations. I mean, there's nothing that would there's nothing about their policies, about their agenda that is misaligned with the capabilities of the refinery on St. Croix.
And Neville, I think really it's the EPA that was really the linchpin. The EPA under the Biden administration seemed to have been a bit heavy-handed. The governor has publicly criticized the EPA on a number of fronts here in the territory. And so the Trump administration has a different environmental protection stance that would port well for the restart, for the safe restart of the refinery. And just to go on record, I mean, the governor is in favor of a safe restart of the refinery.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't have to ask that question. You actually preempted me in that regard. So, what are we looking at processing from an energy standpoint after the speech Monday night? Generically, again.
Well, so I think I'll say a couple of things just from, I think there's
at that point when the governor talking energy and the camera gonna hone in on you, right? And the WAPA director, who was once the governor's chief of staff, right, talking about energy. What should the public be looking at? Because what we're talking about now as it relates to cost to the ratepayer and what WAPA provides, it's pretty much been, the same from a dollar standpoint, I'd say for at least 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, so I think that I think one thing that I know for a fact, and Salesville, you tell me if you agree or not, I think the governor is going to be well equipped with tangible impacts that have already been derived from the many actions that have been executed, especially in the very recent years, or year, I should say. And that is going to be able to set the foundation for the future of what is also to come. So it's not, it's one thing to come in there and talk, hopefully, of what could be. He's going to be well equipped to demonstrate the successes, the milestones that have been met on the renewable front, on our energy efficient generation front, on our utility scale batteries, both coupled to renewables and coupled to our efficient generation, improving the stability of the power system of the territory as a whole. And that's just as of today. And that's before we have $600 million going in to further improve the infrastructure. We have $62 million from a Solar for All program that's going to be expanding the deployment of renewables at the residential level and at the community solar level. That's before we deploy a whole network of energy efficient infrastructure and appliances to the territory through a $50 million homes energy rebate program. So, we're what's going to be great about what the conversation or the speech next week is that it's not just only looking forward, it's also demonstrating the successes as of today and how that sets a foundation for even more successes to come in the very near future.
Is the I gotta speak properly now, even though it's a local channel, I go with is, are the ratepayers going to see an increase given that the subsidy no longer exists?
No. Are the ratepayers going to see an increase?
An increase in cost, because if the government was subsidizing, it's just a math question. If the government was subsidizing that differential, right, that it costs WAPA to function as opposed to what we are paying the Water and Power Authority. If the governor was providing, that difference, now the question is, and they're not doing it anymore, are we going to be passing on that additional cost to the ratepayers?
No, we're not. The governor is
are
totally against.
So we're biting that bullet, is what we're saying.
Yes, we have been biting that bullet, but we were seeing substantial movements on WAPA's projects now, while before they were pretty much stalled out for various reasons. WAPA is putting in, I think, new meters. That whole issue with estimating bills, they're trying to get a better handle on that. That allows them to even out their cash flow process a little more and be able to collect revenues that perhaps was being left on the table. So we don't see, and the governor is totally against any increase to the ratepayers. He has bite the bullet. He has taken a brow beating on that, just to make sure that the residents of this territory can survive till, in the desert, until they could find the water to drink. And the good news is, it's gonna come. Like I said, before the end of the Bryan Roach administration, the rates that have been stabilized for the last 6 years will be coming down.
That's a goal.
I think it's more than a goal. I see the map. I know. I could. It has to come. I mean, WAPA is doing all the right things that prevented it.
But it requires some infrastructure change and commitment in addition to the policies internally. So that's the goal.
Yes, it is the goal.
Okay. Yeah, but I think the one of the key points here is we talked about the subsidy standpoint and those subsidies going away. Well, the subsidy has always, and any subsidy should be intended to be a bridge to an ultimate goal, to an ultimate outcome. And if the fact that we are during the time of the subsidies and if you look at that window when the subsidies were being delivered and then where we are today, we have more efficient generation, we have a more diversified energy mix in the territory, which means the need for the subsidy. The whole point is to wean yourself off of the need for the subsidy, and that's the milestones that have already been made are already some of the key steps that need to be taken to eliminate the need for the subsidy as a whole. So it going away doesn't have the same impact today as that subsidy going away 2 years ago when we were still running purely legacy generation, still running far more diesel than we would have cared to. Not having a subsidy then versus not having a subsidy now are vastly different scenarios, and that's what's really key about making sure that progress is made during the window in which the subsidy is being delivered, so that way you don't end up where you started, and that's certainly not where we are with the advancements that have occurred.
And never let
me ask you a question real quick because I don't want to. We got like two and a half minutes left. Charging stations. What's the status with that territory right now?
So we have the first 4 sites, 8 charging stations deployed on St. Croix. We're currently in the procurement stage for the charges on St. Thomas, which are going to be at the Fort Christian parking lot that's being completely redeveloped right now. So in total, within the next month, we'll have over about 14 charges territory-wide, and then we still have another 12 charges to deploy after that for 34 charges territory-wide this year.
But so Neville, I just wanted to make to your listening audience really clear. We are going to bring the rates down, but I need to clear we can't do it prematurely, and that's really important. WAPA is going through a bit of a transformation, and they need a chance to breathe. They've been underwater, holding their breath, and we have to give them a chance to get a breath of air to continue the efforts. If we do that prematurely, we run the risk of offsetting all the gains that we've made before. But like I said, before the end of this term, the governor is hell-bent on making sure that we do the things necessary to bring the rates down, but we just can't do it prematurely.
I would like to thank you, Mr. Chief of Staff, Kevin Williams, out to the west, and Mr. Kyle Fleming out to the east for joining me this morning, talking about where we are with respect to the governor's, to the Virgin Islands platform. The governor will speak more to this on Monday night, and I think the governor is actually going to be making his rounds subsequent to giving this address, and hopefully he'll be joining us here in the studio at WTJX. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us, and Happy New Year once again.
Thank you for having us, Neville.
Thank you.
You got it. That's Kevin Williams and Kyle Fleming on behalf of the governor, the Bryan Roach administration, addressing our energy needs here in the territory. Looking forward to talking with you men again sometime in the future. Take it easy, gentlemen. Thanks a lot. Be good and be safe, and talk to you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed on Analyze This are entirely those of the on-air participants and do not reflect those of the station's board, management, staff, or underwriters.
Analyze This with Neville James is underwritten in part by the Virgin Islands Energy Office, powering policies and programs for a more sustainable tomorrow. The Virgin Islands Energy Office, proud to support public media in the Virgin Islands.
Stay updated with news, alerts, and other valuable information